with Whoopi, Abby Huntsman, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Meghan McCain, and Anna Navarro. Now, let's get things started.
Wow, a lot of guys here today. Yeah. True. Good, because it's International Women's Day. Okay. So, in fact, we thought the Annie Lennox, Aretha Franklin hit, Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, was an appropriate walkout song since today is International Women's Day. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, but first, I have been starting every show since Whoopi's been out of the show, home sick, telling you that she's getting better, which she is, and that she'll be back soon. But today I'm going to let her give you the update herself. Take it away, Whoopi.
Hey, yes, it's me. I am here. I am up and moving around, not as fast as I'd like to be, but I am okay. I'm not dead. So here's what happened. I had pneumonia, and I was septic. Pneumonia in both lungs, which meant there was fluid, there was all kinds of stuff going on. And yes, I came very, very close to leaving the earth. Good news, I didn't. Thank you for all of your good wishes, all of the wonderful things that people have been saying. Even people who are not like huge fans of mine have actually said nice things about me. We all know that's going to change when I get back. But for right now, it's brilliant. And thank you for everything. And ladies, I cannot wait to see y'all. This has been interesting, and I'll tell you about it when we're all at the table.
Okay.
To everybody, see you soon.
Her humor, I miss just her wittiness.
I miss her shoes.
I know. Yes, I know.
So I thought the headline about Paul Manafort's sentencing had a typo in it. Did you read about this? Okay, there's no such luck, because a judge sentenced him to just 4 years in jail. He was supposed to get 24 years for defrauding banks and the government and failing to pay millions in taxes he made from a Ukrainian political consulting thing that he did. And there are countless examples of people serving a lot more time for less serious crimes. For instance, there's a guy in 2009, Ellis, the same judge, sentenced to, it was a black Democratic Congressman, William J. Jefferson, to 13 years in a corruption and bribery case. It was the longest sentence ever to give to a congressman. Is there a little problem here with race, do you think? Because T.S. Ellis, sounds like Trump supporter Ellis to me.
I thought this was so ridiculous. I was so angry about it yesterday.
Yeah.
That congressman you just talked about,
Jefferson, yeah.
He got convicted for having $90,000 stuck in his freezer in foil and went to jail for 13 years. Paul Manafort has defrauded the U.S. taxpayer, all of us, for millions and millions of dollars. He had been sharing campaign information with Russians. This is a very bad guy. And more than that, the judge said about him in his statements, Manafort had, quote, lived an otherwise blameless life and was a good friend and generous person to others. Only person this guy was generous to was like the salesman at Brioni who sold the snakeskin jacket. You know, he is a bad guy.
He lobbied for the tobacco industry. This is his past.
That, look, that is legal. Defrauding the money laundering, defrauding taxes, being in conjunction with other governments about U.S. campaigns.
Well, that's coming up, isn't it? That's in another trial, right?
In D.C., I think he's facing another trial, another sentencing. You know, what was strange to me is that I was never a big fan of the federal sentencing guidelines, because it really, you know, tied you up, because you would want to recommend something, and it took the recommendation and all of your discretion away from you as a federal prosecutor, and it also took all the discretion away from judges. And so I was never a fan of it. but now they're just discretionary. But the federal sentencing guidelines were something like, I think it was up to 25 years. And so 4 years instead of 25 years, there's such a huge discrepancy there. It just didn't really make a lot of sense, especially when you think about someone like Kalief Browder, who was, spent 3 years in prison as a 16-year-old for taking a knapsack, 2 years in solitary confinement, and he was never found guilty of anything, and then got out and committed suicide, a 16-year-old black kid. So when I think about the disparity in sentencing, it really sickened me. I don't know what the judge was thinking, but we've got to do something about our system and the racial disparity in sentencing.
Well, I guess he was thinking, I identify. He's a white guy, I'm a white guy. We both like Trump, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
but it was just a prime example of that disparity.
Even the politics, take the politics out. I think this was just a wake-up call to everybody. If, like, you don't think that there is a screwy system in some of these cases, this is the perfect example of that. And the list goes on of cases, people that spend their life behind bars, moms of 6 kids that were, charged for nonviolent drug offenses.
We had one here.
We talk about this all the time on the show. And what bothered me about when he came out yesterday is he had zero remorse. He said, actually, I'm humiliated. I hope you show me sympathy. And I thought, well, I'm humiliated that you're only going to prison for 4 years for working and hiding millions of dollars working with Russians. If anything, that's a signal to people who are also doing dirty work of like, oh, I'll just get a slap on the wrist. I'm just going to go to prison for a few years. So what's the problem?
Does this have anything to do with McConnell trying to stack the courts with conservative judges, do you think? Because this is an example of where they will be judging people.
Well, no. I mean, look at the White House has actually done some good work on criminal justice reform. So I don't think you could make the argument.
Yes. Yeah, that's what Van Jones was speaking about at CPAC.
Yes, this White House
You laugh, but look at Van Jones and the things he said about prison reform. That's not my issue with this. Paul Manafort was always a really bad guy. His lobbying firm was known as the torture lobby because they had a propensity for spinning foreign dictatorships for years and years and years. So he was someone that I think when he became President Trump's campaign manager, those of us who come from political circles, he is not someone anyone would touch with a 10-foot pole because of his nefarious past. So when he had such a high-level position, it automatically sounded off a lot of alarms. He actually was forbidden from having anything to do with the 2008 Republican National Convention because of concerns over his associations with Russian oligarchs. So he's always been a really bad guy. I always thought he would end up in jail. I thought for longer as well. But I think actually working for Trump ended up putting him in jail faster because it brought so much attention to who he is.
Which is such a good point, and I think it's so shameful that this guy got away with defrauding the government of millions for years and years and years. And but for the scrutiny that came from working for Trump, he would have gotten away with it, and he did for decades.
And will Trump pardon him?
You try not paying your taxes. You try defrauding, the taxes for $100.
If Trump hadn't run for president, he would have gotten away with all this stuff he's doing.
Will Trump pardon him? Is that on the table?
Well, that's another discussion.
Well, Trump tweeted about it this morning.
But his own family, like the Manafort family, his daughter actually changed her last name from Manafort and is quoted as saying that her father had taken blood money. So I do agree, if you're taking blood money from Russian oligarchs and from Ukrainians for propaganda purposes, and among all the other, by the way, Saudi Arabia, Kenya, Nigeria, the list goes on for dictatorial governments, he should be rotting in jail for the rest of his life. And I think we're all in collective agreement.
My guess is, I mean, he's going to be facing Judge Amy Berman Jackson, and that's going to be in D.C.
And that's for witness tampering, right?
Right, and it's March 13th, and there's 2 conspiracy counts in front of her. She's the same judge that slapped Roger Stone with that gag order. I think she's going to be a much less sympathetic judge, and he's facing 10 years in front of her.
Which is the other point. Remember, this guy, this guy was supposed to be cooperating with the investigation, and he was lying even during the investigation.
I know.
So, this sentence is just inexplicable. It is immoral.
And I think that the moral of this whole story is you wonder how many others are out there doing the same type of work that don't ever get caught, that don't ever get punished.
But there's also like something here that it sets this precedent which was where the paradigm shift have to happen in politics, which I think especially Abby and Anna can attest to this, that there were people that would work for Trump that wouldn't work for anyone else, or that Trump would hire, that no one else would hire.
He enjoys hiring people like this.
And it's interesting that the chicken, because I always think he gets away with everything, and the chickens have sort of come home to roost. At least in the case of Paul Manafort.
Let's take a break. When we come back, is Joe Biden about to announce he's running against Trump? But as we go to break, Annie Lennox is going viral with this International Women's Day in a video where she calls for global feminism and points out the problems that women around the world still face to this day. Yeah.
1 in 3 women and girls are impacted by physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. Over 2.7 billion women are legally restricted from having the same choice of jobs as men. Around the world, we still have a very long way to go before every woman and girl has access to equal rights. That is why we stand together as global feminists.
Of the powerful Oscar-winning documentary, Period, End of Sentence, on how they're empowering a revolution for women halfway around the world.
So we could be just days away from a game changer in the 2020 race for the White House. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, you know who he is? He talks like me. He has my voice.
I didn't realize that.
He does. He has my voice. Anyway, he said he's decided not to run for president, and D.C. insiders say they think it's because Joe Biden is about to announce. You know, because Joe and Sherrod are both like moderate Democrats. Am I right? They're not real lefties. Those
appeal to blue collar.
They appeal to the blue collar vote, which Trump got. I know a lot of Obama voters were blue collar too. So in the general election, do you think that Biden can go up against Trump? You know, he'll call him names. He'll call him crazy old Joe or something, and Biden has to say, well, okay, President Bone Spurs. You know, it'll be like that. what do you think will happen in the election with Biden?
I got to tell you, I can't wait. I think, for me, Joe Biden is the anti-Trump. Yeah. Right? He is actually capable of human emotion. He can empathize. He has spent his entire life serving in government, not making money. It's been all about service. He has been with the same wife forever and a day.
Yes.
Yeah. He is coherent. He can put out a sentence that's got a verb and a noun, and you know, it's nothing. He knows the globe. He knows where different countries are. He can actually point to countries and say, he probably knows how to spell Venezuela all by himself.
Yeah. All by himself.
I can't wait for Biden to run.
But they say he has baggage.
Yeah.
Biden.
Yeah, but
who doesn't?
I don't know. I mean, after Trump, I mean, you know, he can't claim Trump. He can't claim the moral high ground.
No.
And so I don't think any baggage he has matters. I also think, I mean, it's anecdotal, but we've had people in the audience that are moderate Republicans, and we've asked them at the break, you know, would you vote for? That's true, rarely.
Don't be bitter.
But it's anecdotal. But they've said I would vote for Joe Biden, and so he's someone that I think appeals to independents. He appeals to moderate Republicans.
I mean, I'm a pretty moderate person.
Yeah, he's a very
you would vote for
appealing
Biden?
person.
And
against who? Against
well,
Trump?
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what lane he goes in and how he channels himself, because a lot of the candidates so far have agreed to universal health care, free education, signed on with the new Green New Deal. What I will say, because I spent a lot of time in 2016 traveling the country and talking to voters, and my takeaway was that there was a lot missed about the mood of the country in polls and what the media was talking about. And I think what Joe Biden could do really well is he understands the mood of this country. He's not going to spend his time tweeting AOC. I think he understands the blue-collar workers. I think you're right. He has empathy. He has feelings. And so if there's anyone that can be successful, and I hope that he stays more in the moderate lane, because he can attract the middle of the country.
What will happen in the primaries? I mean, that is really the question. I mean, are the lefties in the primary going to go after him? And is that going to split the party? What happens then?
Joe's the only one I think that can be the adult in the room and say, do you guys want to win the primary or do you want to beat Trump?
But
he wants to win the general election.
And that is the question, though. But there's an old adage that, and I'm going to mess this up, but Republicans get in line, Democrats get an ideology, and I think that the purity test is a real thing for liberals and Democrats right now. And whether we like it or whether
the purity test,
meaning that right now, I would still say that the new incumbent congresswomen like AOC are leading the party in a very specific direction, which is not a traditional Democratic direction in the vein of a Joe Biden.
Well, you know, I disagree with that.
Yeah,
I have to say, I think that they get a lot of publicity, but it seems like Nancy Pelosi is leading the party right now.
But I think it shows from, well, I think she is being pulled in a direction. I think she's doing the best. I think I conceded on the show that she was much more powerful than I had given her credit for originally. But I do think when it comes to primary challenges, we are going to see what this party is. And I know for people like you, Joy, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want to win. You want to win. You want to beat Trump. The question is,
Joe
you
Biden,
be willing
Joe
to?
Piscopo, Joe anybody.
Will you be willing to? But will you be willing to hedge?
Joe Behar, my husband. I don't even know.
Will you be willing to hedge? Like, let's say he hypothetically came out against the Green New Deal, and I don't speak for him. I have absolutely no idea. But if he did that, are you still okay? There are certain topics that I don't think that he will go, and I'm just pontificating on speculation that he wouldn't go full left on. Would someone like you still be comfortable with that?
Yes, because there's a poll.
Well, I was asking Joy directly.
But that I would be comfortable with voting if he goes.
She would vote for Megan Actis over Trump.
It's true.
I will vote for anybody who goes up
and
against
most people will agree with you
anybody.
because there's a Monmouth poll
that says it's just horrendous.
I know.
You know that.
But I also think that I hope that's what happens because I will be interested to see which ends up happening is ideological purity or beating Trump, and that is and you have to trust me and Abby because we're the ones that spend the most time in red states. No shade. I'm telling you, if you go too far left, I'm telling you, and we want, by the way, if Trump wins, I want to repeat all the warnings we've given.
But very quickly, there's a Monmouth poll. There's a 56% majority said they would rather vote for a Democrat they don't agree with on most issues who would be stronger against Trump, compared with 33% who would choose a candidate they agree with more but would be weaker against Trump in November 2020.
Well, maybe it would be the Joy Behar voter.
But Sonny, again,
what about if they say that they're both too old? They are both old.
I hate ageism. I hate it.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to care.
People talk about Joe Biden's age a lot.
It's ridiculous.
Guys, it's not like he's running against The Rock. He's running against Donald Trump. Put them both on a treadmill. Whomever's still alive can win.
Also, we got to put that away. I don't like that.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden is fit, and Trump.
Hamburger.
Coming up, why one iconic Hollywood director is publicly trashing Oscar winner Cher. Yes, how dare he? We'll talk about that
next. Now is the time for strong women to speak out. And when these women come together, watch out, because we have our views.
If you want to change, get out and make it.
We have our voices.
Every single one of us who have a moral compass have to speak up and listen to women.
I'm a sharp-tongued woman. I'm proud of it. That's why when it's time to voice your view, this is where you come.
Breaking barriers is not easy, but it is worth it.
The only place in daytime taking it all on.
There's been a lot of healthy debate at this table. There are a lot of strong women around this table.
Proud of it.
You strong.
Be strong. Be bold.
All day long.
And that is why it's called The View.
On ABC.
Welcome back. So, this very famous director, Peter Bogdanovich, was asked to name the most difficult person he worked with, and his answer was Cher. Can you believe it? Not Marlon Brando. Usually they say Barbara Streisand, poor girl, because she's talented and she wants the best. They say she's difficult. But he claimed that she doesn't like men, Cher, doesn't like men. She likes gay men, I know that. And they like her. He said that she can't act. And she only won the Best Actress at Cannes for Mask because he shot her well. Oh, what a narcissist.
She won an Oscar.
Right. She won an Oscar for Moonstruck, and she was nominated for Silkwood. So how does he explain that?
Well, I'm going to say this. I don't know who the hell that guy is, but I sure as hell know who Cher is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, he's behind the scenes.
I don't know who that is. I know who Cher is.
I don't know how anybody...
He directed two great movies. One of them is The Last Picture Show, which you should check out, with Sybil Shepherd. Beautiful movie. And Moon, what's the name of that movie? What's it called?
See, no one can even remember.
Paper Moon.
Paper Moon.
Oh, that was good
Great
too.
movie.
Yeah, but Cher's an icon. There's a Broadway show about her right now.
Yeah.
All I know is I went to...
But he's saying she can't act.
I don't think...
Iconic doesn't
I think she has an Oscar, and she's amazing.
You know what? I went to a Cher show when I was younger. And I'll never forget that experience as a young girl.
Really?
She was inspirational to everyone there, but especially someone of my age who was like, look at that woman on that stage. Look what she can do. To say she's not talented?
That she
Who
can't
are
act.
you?
He didn't say
Who
she
are
couldn't sing.
you?
She has an Oscar.
Not only that, but listen, I don't know how anybody who saw Cher slap the bejesus out of Nicolas Cage among Struck with Cher. Snap out of it.
She can't.
Snap out of it, Peter.
Well, if anyone knows her story, I mean, you know, when she was with Sonny Bono, he really took advantage of her. She was a big part of their success. He took a lot of money from her, a lot of the song rights, a lot of the music.
Really?
She had to leave him penniless. And I think she then, when she had to rebuild her career, took control of her career. And perhaps that is one of the things he's reacting to, that she became this empowered, really strong woman. And on International Women's Day, I think a lot of the women in the audience can relate to that. When you become this really strong woman, there are men that can't handle that.
But she says she hates men. Maybe she just hated him.
Maybe she just hated him, and maybe he hated the fact that she was this empowered person that wouldn't let him treat her in a certain way.
You know, if you don't follow Cher on Twitter, you should. I mean, this woman is the queen of the emojis and the queen of the clapback. So some guy said to her, you know, aren't you a little old to be prancing around the stage in that outfit? And she said, I don't know. Why don't you go ask Mick Jagger?
Right. Okay, before we go out of this block, people here in New York, if you're looking for something to do, I went to see a play last night at the Cherry Lane Theater by my friend Matt Williams, who created Roseanne.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's really talented. There he is. It's called, and you won't believe the topic. I really can't say the title.
Oh,
It says, Actually, We're Blanked. Fill in the word.
Okay.
Actually, we're blanked. Get it?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's at the Cherry Lane Theater. It's all about what's going on in the world right now, and they were just great. So go
How
see
long
that.
is it on?
It's just started. I went to opening night.
Okay.
And
You stayed the
it's
whole
only
time.
an hour and a half, no intermission, and really funny at the Cherry
Thanks for
Lane.
inviting us, Joy.
Till
Yeah.
April, someone just started.
I know,
What'd you
right?
say?
Thanks for inviting us,
Joy.
I was invited. I can't bring everybody along with me. You know, these girls, they want
come as
everything.
a
They want my blood.
I know. We come as a package deal.
And you know what? Peter Bogdanovich would look really bad in a Bob Mackie dress. I'm just saying. I'll be right back.
Tell you about this great campaign called The Magic of Storytelling. Now through 31st, for every shelfie taken, which is a selfie taken with a book and then posted to Twitter for Instagram with hashtag Magic of Storytelling, Disney and ABC will donate one book up to 1 million books to the organization First Book that gets new books to educators and kids in need. This is a phenomenal campaign that really helps kids fall in love with the magic of reading. We aren't just asking you at home to take shelfies. We asked some of our View friends as well. So take a look.
This is my favorite book, The Sun Also Rises. I like it because it's actually true. And it's a good book.
My favorite book is Quackenstein Hatches a Family.
My favorite book is Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer.
This is one of the best books I have ever read, and I will love it to the end of my life. It's called Mistress Masham's Repose by T.H. White. It's a great adventure story.
I'm here with one of my favorite authors, Roxane Gay. I heard this book is amazing, so it's next up on my list. Support her, support books, support Black women.
These are our favorite books, Charlotte's Web.
And Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, so get out and read.
Oh, wait, push in, everybody push in.
Joy, I'm not in this. Are you kidding me? There's no room for my head. Look at how big I look. That's crazy. All right, get out. This is having a panic attack. Get out. The world is storytelling.
Well, we wanted to make sure you knew about some of our favorite books, so I'll start with mine. It's The Wedding by Dorothy West. It's one of the gems of the Harlem Renaissance. She was just such a gem. It was Dorothy's last novel. It was published in 1995. Jackie O was her editor. She begged her to write it. It takes place on Martha's Vineyard in the 1950s. It explores the themes of history, race, and class, and all of those themes and the characters all crash together at a wedding. Who doesn't love a wedding? Joy, what was one of your favorites? Yes.
Oh, I picked 9 Stories by J.D. Salinger, because when I was in high school, I discovered J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye, but I don't know if people realize he wrote other books.
Yeah.
And this is not that many, because he was basically a recluse, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the most famous stories in here is called A Perfect Day for Banana Fish, and it's very tragic but funny, and that's what I love. And also the other thing is there's a cache waiting of more Salinger stuff that's coming out, so wait for that.
Wait for that one too.
Yeah.
Anna, your book choice.
100 Years of Solitude. This is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who is one of my favorite authors, though I didn't agree with him politically, but man, the guy can write. He is, you know, the genre is Latin American surrealism, and it's just the story of a family, the Buendia family in the town of Macondo. Everything is crazy. So really, and it always makes me think about just how surreal what we're living through is right now. But go read this, because it's better in fiction than in reality.
That's a brilliant book.
Abby, you're up. All right, quickly, Maria Shriver, who I've read all of her books. She wrote one later on in her years. She's a mom now. She's been through a divorce, an affair. She's lost parents. She talks about being at ease with yourself, accepting yourself, loving other people. So I have it on my bedside table. It's one of those you can read just in a day, but whenever I've had a rough day, I just open it up and I just pick a chapter, and it just inspires you, reminds you what matters in life.
Right now.
Yeah, I love this book.
Megan?
Mine is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. The Old Man, yes, I think many of you, it's a classic. It's about the story of Santiago, who's an old Cuban fisherman who hasn't brought in a catch for months, and then finally on the 85th day, he gets a giant marlin, and it's a story about human existence, overcoming adversity, mortality. It reminds me of my father, and I really love it. So, and it's the shortest book of everyone. So,
yeah. It's a wonderful book. For more information on the magic of storytelling, check out our website. And if you want to get in on the action, take a selfie right now, well, selfie now with your favorite book and post it with the hashtag Magic of Storytelling, and be sure to tag The View. Who knows? Maybe you'll end up on the show or on one of our social media platforms. We'll be right back.
Next, the women behind the Oscar-winning documentary, Period, End of Sentence, on the revolutionary way they're helping women triumph over a cycle of oppression.
Those were the filmmakers of the powerful Netflix documentary short, Period, End of Sentence, who won an Oscar for putting a spotlight on the taboo of menstruation in rural India, and the life-changing machine that's now empowering women to produce their own sanitary pads. Take a look.
नाम भी नहीं सुना नाम भी तुम्हारा नहीं सुना
हमारी कभी फैमिली ना कोई यूज सुना है मतलब पैड लगा लेते हैं तो अच्छे रहते हैं जहाँ भी जाओ कोई हंसी ना उड़ा हुआ है कोई कपड़ा नहीं सना है कोई कुछ नहीं हुआ हम आपको पैड देंगे ट्राई करेंगे तैयार पता ही ना कैसे करेंगे ले लिया.
Please welcome director Rika Zatabshi and producers Melissa Burton and Claire Sliney. First of all, congratulations on the Oscar. That is wonderful. And today is International Women's Day. And even now, in 2019, periods are still stigmatized around the world, which is unbelievable to me. Rika, as the director, you traveled to rural India and spoke face-to-face with women about menstruation. And what did you learn?
We learned that a lot of women don't have access to sanitary hygiene products. We learned that in the villages there may be one store far away that sells a couple packs of pads, but usually it's being sold by male shopkeepers, and the women don't feel comfortable and are embarrassed to purchase it from the shopkeepers. Yeah. It's treated like contraband. I mean, if we even bought a pad from a male shopkeeper once, and he put it in a box, an incense box, and then wrapped it in a black plastic bag. And there's all these steps taken to ensure that, no one knows what this thing is. And then in addition to that, the women are using cloth or really anything that they can find because that's really kind of what's culturally accepted, and because no one's talking. No one's actually talking to them about the steps that they need to take.
What kind of impact does it have on their lives?
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of health-related problems that arise when you're using cloth or reusing cloth especially. And then in addition to that, I think the fear and the shame of of menstruating and not knowing what's happening to your body every single month, thinking that you have an illness or that there's something inherently wrong with you. I think that really holds women back in other aspects of their lives.
Yeah. Melissa, the film came out as a project. You were teaching at Oakwood High School in California?
That is true.
And tell us about that, and why was this particular thing important to you?
Well, around 7 years ago, 2 students approached me and said, would you be the faculty sponsor for an organization called Girls Learn International? Girls Learn International is a nationwide organization that seeks to give high school students a voice in the global movement for equal access to education for all genders. So, as part of that initiative, they send 16-year-old students to the United Nations. In fact, they'll be here starting Monday the 11th at the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations. And they're on the floors of ECOSOC. They've got their head badges on. They're in the rooms advocating for the rights of the girl. And it's important that a girl be in the room. And it was in one of these commissions that we learned about girls dropping out once they begin to menstruate, and we learned at the same time about Morgan Anthem, who had at that time just created this machine. And so the students and I thought immediately we need to raise awareness about this. We're going to get a machine. We're going to get the supplies. We're going to work with our partner Action India in India, who we knew had been wanting the machine, and make a film about it.
You know, I watched this last night, and I got to tell you, I have a sister from India who was adopted, and so it was close to my heart. But just how much we take for granted in this country. I will never walk in a pharmacy and buy feminine care again without thinking about how lucky we are. And you guys put a spotlight on that. So
true, and there's still stigma here. People don't, in movies here, usually when someone goes to buy tampons or pads, it's the father who's embarrassed, or it's the boyfriend. You know, I mean, I think we still have a lot of stigma here.
It's also the girl who's embarrassed in this country. I remember when I went to the drugstore in my neighborhood, and I said, can I have a Kotex? And the guy, the pharmacist said to me, how profuse is your flow? And I went, what? I thought I was going to die right there on the ground.
I would have thought so too.
Yes. Imagine having that question from a grown man.
Oh my gosh.
Unbelievable. Claire, you're only 20 years old. You are at UPenn, my alma mater.
Yes.
But already an Oscar winner. Unbelievable. You were a student, though, under Melissa, and you have become, you were the co-founder, right, of the PAD Project. Tell people that don't know what that is all about it.
Yeah, so under, Melissa's guidance, I came on to Girls International and learned about this issue and was so moved by it also that a large group of us really wanted to continue to pursue this issue and do what we could to raise awareness. And so we did a bunch of different homegrown fundraising things, bake sales, backyard yoga fundraisers, and ultimately launched a Kickstarter to raise money for a pad machine and a year's worth of supplies.
And she did earn
fantastic.
Yeah, and so it's both, providing pads in a place where, they're stigmatized and there's not, a huge amount of access, and then also allowing women to engage in the economy and make wages for themselves.
Yes. And Rika, installing the pad machine in the village, since installing it, you've kept in touch with the women in India. And what kind of changes have you observed? And are the men more accepting? Because that was another part of the film, because I saw the men also making the pads, which was fascinating to me.
They didn't even know what a period was.
No, and initially the women actually told them that it was a Huggies machine, a machine that creates Huggies diapers.
Yes.
And they were all fine with that. And then once I think the men started realizing that, hey, my daughter is working and she's making money and she's putting this towards her education, I think they began to really accept this machine. And I think maybe some of them all along may have known that it creates pads and not diapers. But since the machine was installed, the women are now making, I think, up to 250 pads a day and selling them.
Great work. Great work. Well, our thanks to Rika, Melissa, and Claire. Period. End of Sentence is streaming on Netflix now. Please catch it. We'll be right back.
Topics with Whoopi, Abby Huntsman, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Meghan McCain, and Anna Navarro. Now, let's get things started.
lot of guys here today.
Yeah.
True. Good, because it's International Women's Day. In fact, we thought the Annie Lennox, Aretha Franklin hit, Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, was an appropriate walkout song since today is International Women's Day. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, but first, I have been starting every show since Whoopi's been out of the show, home sick, telling you that she's getting better, which she is, and that she'll be back soon. But today, I'm going to let her give you the update herself. Take it away, Whoopi.
Hey, yes, it's me. I am here. I am up and moving around, not as fast as I'd like to be, but I am okay. I'm not dead. So here's what happened. I had pneumonia, and I was septic. Pneumonia in both lungs, which meant there was fluid. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And yes, I came very, very close to leaving the earth. Good news, I didn't. Thank you for all of your good wishes, all of the wonderful things that people have been saying. Even people who are not like huge fans of mine have actually said nice things about me. We all know that's going to change when I get back. But for right now, it's brilliant. And thank you for everything. And ladies, I cannot wait to see y'all. This has been interesting, and I'll tell you about it when we're all at the table.
Okay.
To everybody. See you soon.
Her humor, I miss just her wittiness.
I miss her shoes.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
So I thought the headline about Paul Manafort's sentencing had a typo in it. Did you read about this? Okay, there's no such luck because a judge sentenced him to just 4 years in jail. He was supposed to get 24 years for defrauding banks and the government and failing to pay millions in taxes he made from a Ukrainian political consulting thing that he did. And there are countless examples of people serving a lot more time for less serious crimes. For instance, there's a guy in 2009, Ellis, the same judge, sentenced to, it was a black Democratic Congressman, William J. Jefferson, to 13 years in a corruption and bribery case. It was the longest sentence ever to give to a congressman. Is there a little problem here with race, do you think? Because T.S. Ellis, sounds like Trump supporter Ellis to me.
I thought this was so ridiculous. I was so angry about it yesterday.
Yeah.
That congressman you just talked about,
Jefferson, yeah.
He got convicted for having $90,000 stuck in his freezer in foil and went to jail for 13 years. Paul Manafort has defrauded the U.S. taxpayer, all of us, for millions and millions of dollars. He had been sharing campaign information with Russians. This is a very bad guy. And more than that, the judge said about him in his statements, Manafort had, quote, lived an otherwise blameless life and was a good friend and generous person to others. Only person this guy was generous to was like the salesman at Brioni who sold the snakeskin jacket. You know, he is a bad guy.
He lobbied for the tobacco industry. This is his past.
That, look, that is legal. Defrauding the money laundering, defrauding taxes, being in conjunction with other governments about U.S. campaigns.
Well, that's coming up, isn't it? That's in another trial, right, Sonny?
In D.C. I think he's facing another trial, another sentencing. What was strange to me is that I was never a big fan of the federal sentencing guidelines because it really, tied you up because you would want to recommend something and it took the recommendation and all of your discretion away from you as a federal prosecutor, and it also took all the discretion away from judges. And so I was never a fan of it. But now they're just discretionary. But the federal sentencing guidelines were something like, I think it was up to 25 years. And so 4 years instead of 25 years, there's such a huge discrepancy there. It just didn't really make a lot of sense, especially when you think about someone like Kalief Browder, who was, spent 3 years in prison as a 16-year-old for taking a knapsack, 2 years in solitary confinement, and he was never found guilty of anything and then got out and committed suicide, a 16-year-old black kid. So when I think about the disparity in sentencing, it really sickened me. I don't know what the judge was thinking, but we've got to do something about our system and the